welcome to our class about Potifar's wife and Joseph. This time around we're again talking about part 2, and if you have the text in front of you, especially if you have the charts in front of you, we can go over them together. Close reading of the text means that while the text is very, very concise, we can get a tremendous amount out of it if we pay close attention to it. You might have already realized as you're reading through the chapter that certain words are used again and again. We're talking about we're setting up Egyptian versus the Hebrew. Right? Joseph is a Hebrew, they are Egyptians. We have set up a master. Right? Potifar is Joseph's master, Joseph is a slave. But now when we get to this particular section, we're going to read very closely. I've set it up for you as a chart, so we can look at it closely and take a look what happens there and how the words are played with. It seems that we have a simple case in front of us. But since the case is told twice, that is immediately a red flag. We have to go and take a look at how it is told each time and what is the purpose for each one of these retellings of the event, right? Because we have an event that first takes place and then is retold twice. Let's see what we can get out of it. We begin with Potifar's wife in verse 14 speaking to the people of her house. At this point, Joseph has run away and she is holding his coat. She calls the people of her house. They don't come in by themselves, it's not their initiative. She calls them over, right? Vatikra le'anshe beita, these are the people of her house. Vatomer lahem lemor, and she says to them, saying, see, right? Re'u hevi lanu ish ivri. See, he brought us a Hebrew man. Who is he? She is speaking about her husband, Potifar. He brought us a Hebrew man. And who is us in this case? She has placed herself as part of her servants. She is buddies with her servants now. He, the person who's responsible for bringing this evil man into the house, is her husband. But she distances herself from her husband, the master, and she becomes buddies with the servants of the household. Okay? And look what she says to them. He brought us a Hebrew man. Joseph is a Hebrew. He's a foreigner. He's different. We are Egyptians. Right? Potiphar's wife and the servants are Egyptians, as opposed to Joseph, who is a foreigner, a Hebrew, an outsider. Letzachek banu, to play around with us. Again, she is part of the inside group of servants. Forgetting for a moment, and I'm putting that in quotes, that she is actually the person giving the instructions around here. Right? No, she is buddies with her servants. They have been hurt just as much as she has, the way she presents the case, by this outsider who was brought in by an evil person who happens to be her husband. Okay? Ba elai lishkav imi. So he came to me to lay with me. The use of imi rather than oti is interesting. Remember our case with the daughters of Lot. I'll let you go back and think about that. Right? Va'ikra b'kol gadol, and I called out with a great voice. Right? She's a very brave lady. And so, as soon as he heard that she called out with a great voice, she says, he left his garment with me, and he ran and he went out. Okay, that seems to be an account of what happened. But then she holds on to the garment. In verse 16, this is the prop. This is what the whole thing is going to move around. This garment gives her the right and the force to come up with the story she's telling. Right? And so she keeps the garment by her until, like that, Adbo Adonav el Beito, until his master comes home. And again, it's quite an interesting choice of the titles used, because we could have said until Potifar came home. That would have been neutral. She could have said until her husband came home. That would have been significantly less neutral, but would have been quite understandable in a case where she as a woman felt hurt. Okay, she as a wife had been hurt. She is expecting her husband to do something about this. But no, the choice of words by the Torah, and it's not by chance, it tells us how she thinks of the situation. His master, she's waiting for Joseph's master to come home, not thinking of him as her husband, which perhaps leaves us wondering about this relationship in general. Right? And indeed she says to him like this. She opens with the words, he came to me. Right? Not the buddy-buddy language, not we're in this together. This is much more concise. This is an upper-class conversation here. She doesn't have to speak to slaves. She doesn't have to create a riot. Okay, she says, he came to me, the Hebrew servant, not the Hebrew man, a Hebrew servant. She won't tell the servant that he's a servant. She wants him to feel part of things. But she will remind her husband that that is a servant. Asher heveta lanu, that you brought to us. It's your fault. Okay? Letzachek bi, to play with me, not with us, as she said to the servants. Okay? At this point there is a gap. She does not need to use as many words. She becomes much more concise, and she says, when I called out, he left his garment by me and ran out. Much shorter, briefer, more upper class account of what happened. Now at this point, Potifar has no choice after his wife delivers this entire message. He has to do something. He is the master of the slave that misbehaved. What is he supposed to do? This is one of the things I asked you, and I would like you to respond to this in the forum. What is he expected to do, and why is he angry?